What's up, North Texas and Go Mean Green fans? I'm joined by a very special guest today, North Texas legend. Y'all probably knew him as the Badger. I call him really good friend, Mason Barbo. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Good. Glad to see you. Happy to
Yeah,
be on.
you guys might not recognize him. He's no longer one of the big and uglies. He's looks more like a quarterback now. Um, how what was your playing weight and what are you at now?
So I always fluctuated between usually between like 305 and 315. Um Heaviest I got right after about a week after the bowl game. I think I came back to school and I was like 330, 332. And then once I started dropping it all, now I usually hover anywhere between 240 to 250.
Gotcha. And you told me back in the day, and I can't remember how many calories and stuff were you having to like intake during the middle of the season to keep that weight where it was?
Yeah, I was never one of those guys that struggled to keep weight on. It was always more of the maintaining and everything. But it would just depend, man. I was in college. I should have been more disciplined, probably on the nutrition side, but it wasn't really one of those things where I was having to chug shakes and hang out in the cafeteria and everything. It was always it's hung around for a long time since birth.
Gotcha. And now, what are you get the fans kind of up to date? What is the Badger doing these days?
Yeah, man. Now I coached for a long time, for coached college ball for 5 or 6 seasons, and then did high school for another few years. But now I'm working for a solar equipment distributor back here in my hometown in Sulphur Springs. It's called Signature Solar, and we're basically a residential solar equipment distributor. So people can come to us with their electric bills, and we can size up systems for them. We can design a system, and then we can sell the equipment to them to put on their houses, to go get installed and everything. So it's doing that. And what we do better than a lot of people is the competitive pricing for our equipment. We have a business model here where we believe that solar, this equipment and this technology is for everybody and not just for the people that have $30,000 or $40,000 laying around, and are comfortable financially. So we think that everybody should have access to that technology.
So if you're wanting to save some money, go off the grid, hit up Mason at Signature Solar. I'll put a link to their website in the bottom.
Appreciate that.
Be sure to check that out. Also, I didn't figure Mason would bring it up, but I want to give him a shout out. He's one of the newest members of the Sulphur Springs High School Hall of Fame.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I was able to get inducted, and there's, that was lucky. When you think about some of the names, a lot of people might not know, but Forrest Gregg, was a Sulphur Springs guy, Packers player from back in the day. There's been several pros that have come through Sulphur Springs. Damian Lewis, who's still a defensive line coach in the NFL, and so it was an honor to be, inducted into that group.
Well deserved, and super excited for you, and to hear that news. That's awesome. So to kind of transition, I had a couple key topics I wanted to talk to you about. Going into a new era, Eric Morris, you experienced plenty of transition while you're at North Texas. You were recruited by Dodge, played for McCarney, then coached under Seth. How big a deal is it for players on the roster? I mean, how hard is that transition process going from one coach to the next, buying into new systems? What all goes into that?
It's going to be kind of where you're at in your career. There, some of the older guys are usually going to be a little more resistant to change, particularly if they've been around the same coach 3-4 years before a new guy comes in. Like I said, Dodge was let go during my first season, halfway through my first season. So for us, it was everybody that had recruited and signed us, and we're finally on campus, and then they get let go. But that being said, I still had 4 years, 4 seasons left in my career. So, I knew I was going to be fine. You had some older guys talk about transfer and stuff, but, I knew I was going to be fine really with whoever came in because I still had so much time left. But what those guys are going through, it's tough it can be tough to transition to a new philosophy, a new style. For instance, if you're going from an air raid or an air attack to a more pro style offense, closer to what we ran with McCarney, or if you're going from a 4-down defense to a 3-down with a jack, it can be a big adjustment. Guys can find themselves looking for kind of a home on that side of the ball because now they're being asked to do something outside of what they were recruited to do.
We're only 3 games in, Eric Morris era, and I'm not sure how much you've got to watch so far, but how do you think things have kind of went so far, and where do you think Eric can take this program kind of after seeing what he did with Incarnate Word? What do you think the end goal could be here?
Yeah, it's, and people might get mad at it. I think we're kind of right on schedule with it. I would say I was very excited for Morris to get hired. I love Seth. Got a great relationship with Seth. But I was very excited about the Morris hire. I remember what he did at Incarnate Word. Great job down there. But he's come in and done all the right things off the field, if you ask me. The only thing I don't know a whole lot about is his strength staff. I just haven't investigated that a whole lot. But he's done what the last 2 staffs didn't do a whole lot of, is he's brought in a lot of Texas guys that have been successful Texas high school coaches, and right, wrong, and different, whether you put a lot of stock in it or not, Texas high school coaches is a proud bunch. And when college comes into their high school, they like to see guys they know or guys they have relationships with. They like to see guys that have made it. You look down at what UTSA is doing with Coach Traylor, and then they've knocked it out of the park, in that aspect. But I think he's done everything right off the field. And then on the field, it's that transition, man. I was thinking about it this morning, going back when McCarney, our first 3 games, people really want to freak out. Our first 3 games, we go get blown out by a Mario Cristobal FIU that had T.Y. Hilton. Then we open up the stadium against Houston with Case Keenum, hung around for a little bit, and then went down to in Alabama with Dante Hightower and those guys at 2011 National Championship. But we started off 0-3, under a new coach. When Seth came in, I think we went down early on to Florida, went down to the Swamp, and and had lost that one, had some struggles there. So we don't like to see it. We don't like to see the way it lost. I think we're at that point of the season where there's a lot of overreactions. Cal, don't know what the expectations were there. We hung around the first half, hey, looked good. They were going touchdown for touchdown, and just kind of fell off. Depth took over. The FIU, that wasn't a fun game. But, again, they're figuring out the quarterback deal, and, saw a lot of bright spots against Louisiana Tech, and I think guys are really going to kind of settle in this week against ACU and really kind of get this thing rolling. I think they beat Louisiana Tech, and everybody kind of caught their breath, had an off week. Gives the staff, gives the kids times to address some key issues of what's going on. So I know Eric was as hurt as anybody. You saw in his comments, his post-game press conference comments, that he kind of expected more. Maybe he thought he was inheriting a more ready-to-win now program. But with the transfer portal and with being a new staff, you never know what you're going to get in August.
Yeah, I think the Louisiana Tech game was, I hate to say must win at this point, but I think especially going into a bye week, getting that win, so you have the 2 weeks to kind of celebrate as opposed to 2 weeks of sitting there 0-3. I think that was definitely huge. But I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a couple years now, mainly to catch up, but also I think you've got unbelievable insight, especially on recruiting on the offense and defensive line side of the ball. I mean, you were at the JUCO ranks, the SEC ranks. You were at North Texas, coached high school. How difficult, and where would you rank it as probably the most difficult position to recruit is the offensive line? I mean, how hard is it to project these kids that maybe tight ends in high school? Or you look at a guy like Lane Johnson, who was a quarterback at Kilgore. Like how hard is it to project not only body types but playing as well?
Yeah, it gets tough, and it's one of those deals that also, statistically you're going to miss on sometimes, right? If you sign 4 or 5 O linemen out of a class, then usually 1 or 2 of those probably is going to, either not be a starter or have to transfer. But it's tougher because, the kids come from all different places, and, a lot of times it's hard to gauge their competition. If they're somewhere and they're the big fish in a small pond beating up on a bunch of little kids, and, makes it a little tougher there. But it's hard to judge that talent. But after a while, you get an eye for it. You know what you're looking for. It comes down to what you're offensively trying to do as well.
And North Texas has kind of had, I mean, they had great, it seems like it's had great success kind of finding some under the radar guys. I know we've brought in some offensive linemen with some huge offer lists. We've brought in some offensive linemen that, maybe didn't have any offers or had a few offers, but, maybe been an inch shorter here or, a little less. What do you think has been the key to North Texas? I mean, I feel like we've had a pretty good offensive line starting with y'all's group. There was a couple rough years there in the set there, but overall the last decade, I would say more times than not, North Texas has been able to put together a pretty solid offensive line.
Yeah, man. I don't know a whole lot about the program history before 2000, but you go back even before that with Andy Brewster and some of those Daryl Dickey teams. It seems like for the last 20 some odd years, two things North Texas has had is that, good offensive lines and good running backs. And, I think, like you said, you get some of those guys that fly a little bit under the radar. You get a guy like Manasseh Mose or, an Aaron Fortenberry back in the day who was, a walk-on that turned into a great starter. You just Antonio Johnson, even myself a little bit, but you find sometimes you just find some of these diamonds in the rough that for whatever reason, the measurables or their competition or their high school just go, by the wayside or under the radar in high school and really develop once they get to that college level.
So real quick right here at the end, we've got a new commit, Cameron Lewis from Terry, offensive line, defensive line. He's coming in here as an offensive lineman, wrestling type. Got some video to play. Just kind of give us your quick thoughts, just watching the tape. What do you project his future could be?
Sure, I like that he's a Houston kid. We always seem to recruit pretty well out of Houston. I don't exactly know what leads to that, but I like his body type. I think he kind of teeters right there. He's in that 6'3" range, right? 6'3", almost 6'4".
6'3", 290 is where he's
right. So I like his body. He's like borderline tackle guard body, but could go either way. So I'm sure he'll be cross-trained between both of those, but there's not a lot of baby fat on him. And I think, a couple years in the weight room is going to be a really good-looking kid. You love to see him playing in a three-point stance. I noticed that early on that when he's got his hand in the ground, he's got great pad level, and he's just as low as he can bend. It's just as low as the other guys on the line. He understands his body, meaning that he's not ripping guys' faces off. He's finishing blocks, running his feet. He understands getting his body between the ball carrier and the ball, or between his defender and the ball carrier. He's taller than a lot of his competition, so he's staying kind of bent over a lot off the ball. But once he's locked on, he runs his feet and goes and finishes that block. So kind of the cons, his feet have got a little bit fat. You got to get a little bit faster, and he needs more violence and hip explosion. But that's going to come in the weight room. That's squatting right there. So as he gets in that weight room and develops, he'll be fine. So what I really like at about the 243 mark on this tape, or the one you sent me last night, he takes a pass pro rep. That's beautiful. Something that college coaches are looking for. He sets, then he redirects back inside and finishes the guy down the line. A lot of the stuff can be developed in college, but those are the type of plays you look for. Can he redirect? Because out there at tackle, it's one-on-one basketball in today's game. So you got to be able to mirror that guy. You've got to be able to keep him in front of you. But I like his balance. You don't see him on the ground unless he's finishing a block, and I really like that. So that's kind of a quick assessment of him. But with O-line, you need to see the full game tapes. You want to see him playing the same in the fourth quarter as the first. But again, being committed, I'm happy about that. I really don't have a lot of negative to say about him. So I think kind of my last point here. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good get. Tackle is it's an important one of the most important positions in today's game. He kind of reminded me a little bit to Antonio Johnson from back in our day. A guy played tackle next to me. He's probably a little further along developed, than Antonio. But, physically and kind of the way he moves are very, very similar. And, he plays with inside hands. He understands leverage and everything. So, I'll definitely be following him and rooting for him. I hope we can keep him on the line, and I think he'll be just fine at North Texas.
I enjoyed seeing that Coach Barbo Fire coming back out there. That was That was enjoyable and insightful, and I think the listeners are going to like that. Hopefully, I would like to keep this next time we get an offense, maybe defensive line clip, getting you or a commit, getting you to come back on and break it down because, like I said, you know way more about it than I do, and probably most of the people on the board. So that's exciting stuff.
Sure, man. Absolutely. Anytime.
Well, thank you for coming on. Good luck, and like I said, we'll put a link in the description. So anybody that's wanting to go off the grid, especially with electricity prices rising, give Barbo a shout so we can get you fixed up.
For sure. Thanks, JD. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Barbo. Go green.
We'll see you later.